In this video, I'd like to show you how to set up a simple automation in Fiery Prepit. Now to do this, we're going to go to our server, we're going to double click and open our preferences. We'll see our hot folder at the top, and we've already created our base hot folder. And then we'll see our automation list here. Now we can use automation for a whole host of different tasks. So I'm going to add a new one. So I'm going to click on add. Now for this one, we're just going to call it trim box cut. And this will just be a demo one. So now I need to go to my import settings. We need to choose our customer, so we can actually set up a customer if we wanted to. So we can say, right, all of these jobs are for this certain customer. I don't need to do that. I don't need to put an order ID in either, but I do need to choose what material these jobs are going to go into. So for this, I'm just going to use my wallpaper one, and I'm going to then say, right, do I want to add a quantity? So every job that comes in is times by this quantity. Well, for this, I don't. Submitted by, don't need to do anything, but that would just be who submitted the job, and any notes if needed. Now, job mode is how I want this job to progress through the through Prepit. So add to job queue just means that it's just going to add it to job queue, and that's it. So it's just a standard hot folder. Generate job just means that it's going to create that job. It's going to do everything to it, i.e. scale, tiles, all of that sort of stuff. And it's going to generate the job without nesting it. So it's just going to be separate sheet jobs. Now for wallpaper, i.e. what we're going to do here, that's perfect because we don't need to nest wallpapers. So I can also go send to nesting queue, which will send it to the nesting, but we would have to manually send the nesting because there'll be no automation there. Or you can go for automation nesting queue, which will then do the nesting process for you, and it will send it off whenever desired. So I'm going to go for generate job. Then I can say, right, I would like it one-sided or double-sided. For this wallpaper, one-sided. And I'm going to go to hide layer. Now, if we have any cut layers in there, we'd need to define that these need to be hidden. So I can go to add and say my cut layers are called cut contour. And I'm going to click add. That means that now all cut contour layers, they're still there. We can still use them, but they're going to be hidden in the print side of the job, which is what we would need. So if I go to curves next, this is how we actually decide what Prepit is going to do with our job. So when we're using Prepit manually, we'd bring a job in, we'll double click it, we'd go to curves, and then we'll choose what part of the job is actually going to cut. Now all we need to do is automate that. So we need to tell Prepit what to do with it. So the one I normally use is I'll go to move a specific layer to media layer. So I can go from layer, and I'm going to use trim box. Now you'll see I've put a capital B there. Now that's how Prepit brings that trim box in. You can see that if you manually open the job. Take a look at what they're called and either take a photo of it. You can import that data then into there. So trim box is going to go to whatever cut line I've decided. Now on my wallpaper media, I've set up all these different layers. So I can say, right, actually I want the trim box to go to a cut layer, which will cut perfectly on my Consberg. So that's now set up. Now I like to turn this fair if no matching curves off, because what that means is it will just stop the job. Now I might want it just to carry on. So for example, I'm just going to turn that one off for now. Now we can actually add more. So if there's more processes that you like it to do, i.e. changing cut contour to a cut line, whatever, we can add those in there as well. So next thing I'm going to do is go to scale. So I need to scale this up as well. So I'm going to go to 300% in there, and that will scale every job that we bring in up 300%. Now if I go to offset, I don't want to add an offset to any of my cut lines, so we're good on that. Now if I wanted to, I can click on that and go, I want to add offset cut line of 10 mil from the edge that I've told it to do. Panels. Now in panels, I'm going to now set up my tiling. So my max panel size is what I normally set up when I'm doing it manually. So again, for this one, I've got 1300 material. So I'm going to set it up as a 1200 wide panel. Now it's wallpaper, so I'm happy just to have it in long sections. So 32000 in height, absolutely fine. As you can see, we've now got our panels here. Now I'm going to add a bit of image bleed, so let's just add like 5mm on those ones, 5mm there, 5mm there. This is our job edge, so if we wanted to add a job edge to it, we can use these ones, but I don't need to for this. I can add an overlap, so let's go for a overlap, and let's add that 10mm overlap in there. And I can do the same with my horizontal as well. 10mm in there now. I know we haven't got any horizontal tiles, but I sometimes like to just make sure they're all set up. That's it for panels, so I'm going to go to eyelets. Don't need to put eyelets on this job, but we can if needed, so just override it. So overriding will override whatever you've set up on the material. This is just now just to basically set up our own personal settings for this type of automation. If I go to output, we can also override what our reg marks are doing and override what our barcodes are doing as well. So I'm going to press OK. Now you've made that automation, that's there, and we can manually sort of trigger it by going import and then open it in that automation. But if we want to use our hot folders to do it, we need to go back to our hot folder selection here, go to base or whatever hot folder you'd like. As you can see, I normally create a hot folder that's named after my automation to make it easy for myself. Then I'm going to go to edit, and now at the bottom we can select an automation to sort of tie in with that hot folder. So I've just made one and I called it trim box cut demo. Obviously I could have called it wallpaper if I wanted to. That's all good. I'm going to press OK. Now, if we wanted to, we could then go on to nesting automations. Now, nesting automation is when it then does the nesting side of the automation bit itself as well. As I said before, in this sort of setup that I have at the moment, if I chose for it to go to manual nesting, it would wait for me to press the button. If I chose for automated nesting, it would use the settings that we define here in order to do that nesting process. So if I just open one of these up, you'll see that I choose then the hot folder, which then sort of assigns the automation. I choose the output, so I can override again my media, my reg marks, my barcodes, and also my group nesting. So I can tell it how it needs to do that. Is it by group? Is it by order ID? And then we can set a criteria. Now with criteria, I can add a new one. And I can say that I want it to start nesting, so to be open to nesting from a certain time of day until a certain time of day. And I can say how long it takes or waits for the next nesting process, or how long, how much of the sheet needs to be filled in order for it to start that process. So if either one of those is longer, it obviously will take priority. So if it hits 100% before it hits the timeout, it will then start to nest for you. Then we have a last sheet. Now the last sheet is basically saying, right, how much of the last sheet that it's going to create do you want to then do that by as well? So the best thing to do is put some smaller numbers in here and fire some artwork through and see how it goes. So I'm going to cancel that for now. I'm going to press OK. Now what I need to do is if I go back onto my desktop and go to my Prepit test files, I'm going to choose a wallpaper job that I've got. Now this is just a standard square file. Copy that. I'm going to go back onto my desktop and go to my input folder, which is this one here. I'm going to go to my base, which I made. Right click, and I'm going to drop it in there. So that will then disappear. There we go. So once that's disappeared, it will then basically run through our job queue. So as you can see, my mouse is actually flicking there, and it's got some little loading sort of screens on it, and that's because it's running our job as we speak. So if I go back into my output, so on my desktop, print output folder, into base, we now have a job that's been created. So there you go. These are my tiles. All of them. And then if I go into my cut file, because we predetermined that they're going in there as well, again, we also have our cut files. Oh, the wrong one. So there's our cut file there. So that's a really quick way of just setting up an automation. Now remember, you can do everything that we can do manually in Prepit, we can set up an automation. You just have to think about how you're doing that process manually and input that data as you go.